Motivational interviewing is a counseling method that helps people resolve ambivalent feelings to find the internal motivation they need to change their behavior. It is a practical, empathetic, and short-term process that takes into consideration how difficult it is to make life changes. Motivational interviewing is a style of communication that has been found to increase engagement in treatment and improve health outcomes. It has been applied to a wide variety of populations and is often used to address addiction and the management of physical health conditions. In this 4-part training series, Adam Alliance examines how clinicians can use motivational interviewing within their practice settings, better understand how patients are motivated to make change, and educate staff in using motivational interviewing techniques. Learning MI involves multiple steps, including understanding the spirit of MI, the stages of change, and strategies for engaging, focusing, evoking, and goal setting. Dr. Maggie Holland from Cherokee Health Systems in Knoxville, Tennessee, shares her insight in implementing motivational interviewing into a clinical practice and how to best engage patients for behavioral change discussions. Part 4 of this 4-part series reviews goal-setting strategies, including knowing the signs your patient is ready to set a goal and how to collectively set a specific goal that sets your patients up for success. Stages of change are also reviewed.
Motivational Interviewing, Part 4, Planning. There are 4 processes of motivational interviewing. Engaging the patient in their treatment plan by connecting with the patient, focusing on an identified target behavior, evoking change talk from the patient, and planning, collaboratively goal setting with the patient. For this portion of the training series, I'll focus on strategies for planning. You'll know that your patient is ready to set a goal based on signs that they are in preparation or action stage of change. You may hear less sustained talk from the patient. Things like, I know that I should quit smoking or cut back on my drinking. You might hear more change talk. I've been thinking more about ways to improve my diet. I've been thinking more about going for walks. And they may be asking you questions about how to change. What help can I get to quit smoking? When a patient is ready, collaboratively develop a plan using a SMART goal, which is going to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If we end the appointment with an open-ended goal, if the patient's saying that they're going to be more active, for example, or cut back on sugar, we've lost an opportunity to help the patient set a goal that's more likely to result in change. You want to set a goal with the patient based on their motivation and confidence and elicit specifics of the goal from the patient. So for example, imagine that you're working with a patient who is struggling to manage their several medical conditions that are related to their obesity. You're talking with them about increasing their activity. A patient who is motivated and confident may have a SMART goal that sounds like this. Starting tomorrow, I plan to start walking on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays for 20 minutes after work for the next X amount of weeks, maybe for the next 4 weeks or 12 weeks until our next appointment. And this information you would have elicited from the patient. So you would have asked them, what would an exercise goal sound like for you? What are you thinking about doing? You're thinking about walking. How many days a week do you want to try to do this to start with? Okay, 3 days. Which days are you going to be most likely to do this, and for how long? What time of day is going to be the best time to do this? So you're getting as specific as possible with the patient. Now, you may talk to a different patient about the same behavior change, so increasing activity. But this patient has low to moderate confidence. So their goal might sound something like this. Starting tomorrow, I plan to drink no more than 3 cans of Mountain Dew every day, from 6 cans a day. So with this patient, perhaps they told you that they weren't confident with working on an exercise goal. But through your engagement skills, you learned that they're also drinking a lot of soda and have talked multiple times about knowing that they need to cut back. Perhaps cutting back completely is not something that they are confident that they can do. So you elicit from them, what's a good goal to start with? How many cans of Mountain Dew a day are you going to try to not drink more than? And then over time, add to that goal. You want to make sure to set a goal with the patient that they're at least 95% confident that they can achieve. This means that many of your patients are going to leave the clinic with goals like the last one that we talked about. They're not quite ideal yet, but they're on the path to what you want for the patient. If you're successful at setting an achievable goal, patients will often return to the next appointment having done more or are ready to add to that goal, and they're more likely to be successful. Remember to be collaborative when setting a goal and have the patient write the goal down. Elicit accountability. Who will help you with this? Do you need someone to go walk with you? Or how will you remember to do this? And elicit strengths. What's helped you to make this change before? Or other big changes? What have you done that's helped? Here are some tips that you can use when planning SMART goals with your patient. The conversation should be like you're walking with the patient, not in front of them, pulling them behind you. Watch out for your writing reflex and moving too quickly. If you notice either of these come up and the appointment feels more like wrestling than dancing, remember that your engaging skills should kick in. You're going to reset. Be careful not to over-prescribe or underestimating patient ambivalence. And give the patient examples of what goals might look like on a continuum. So for a patient with opioid use disorder, maybe a history of intravenous use, who's wanting to start to make changes, tell the patient about what small harm reduction goals might sound like. For example, a goal to not engage in IV use or to delete an unsupportive friend from their contact list, as well as sharing with them goals if they were more confident or motivated. So inpatient or outpatient treatment options in your area or NA meetings. And then asking the patient to choose the goal that is in line with what they're ready to do. Remember, planning is not required. As a matter of fact, most motivational interviewing visits will not include planning because most patients are not in action stage. Pushing for a plan when the patient isn't ready can destroy their motivation. The patient is your guide. Listen from the patient for their readiness to change and their readiness to start to make a plan. At the end of the day, the patient is on the hook for making the change. Remember, we have a healthy respect for our patient's autonomy. Being constantly mindful of what stage of change the patient is in will help to guide you through this process. Let's review the stages of change with matched motivational interviewing interventions. So if you remember, that pre-contemplative patient is someone who believes that they don't have a problem. This is likely going to elicit a writing reflex from most providers. When this happens, stop and use your OR's engaging skills. Remember the positive attributes the patient has. They did come into the clinic that day. For a patient who is contemplative, so they believe that they have a problem and they might change someday, but not today. Again, use those engaging skills and elicit change talk skills. So these are patients that are great to use your readiness ruler with and other evoking skills that we talked about today. A patient who is starting to prepare for change, continue with your engagement skills and evoking skills, and use more open-ended questions to evoke ways the patient is considering change. So what have you been considering doing? What has helped you to make this change before? And then you might start planning with this patient. A patient who is in action stage is already starting to make change. Or they're telling you that they're wanting to start and asking you for help. Plan with the patient using a SMART goal, being very specific and eliciting the goal from the patient. Your OR skills will reinforce progress made in the context of the patient's motivation and elicit from the patient any perceived future barriers and problem solve collaboratively. And this ties into maintenance, working to maintain the changes that I've made. It is expected to relapse with any behavior change. Imagine that a patient of yours has said, "I've quit smoking a week ago." This patient is at high risk for relapse. So we want to plan for that. And this is where motivational interviewing helps with this maintenance stage. We're using our OR skills to reinforce progress in the context of the patient's motivation and eliciting from the patient possible future barriers. And then we're going to problem solve those from the front end and then continue building on our plan. In summary, have a realistic goal for the patient in mind. You'll likely have multiple goals. You'll have a goal that's ideal and long-term, and then you'll also need to have a goal that matches the patient's readiness to change and stage of change for that visit. So you may want this patient to stop misusing substances, but for that visit, your goal is for them to come back to the next appointment. You need the patient to come back to the clinic and hopefully be thinking more about change. Avoid getting ahead of your patient's readiness level and get in touch with your writing reflex. Paying attention to your writing reflex and monitoring that in each visit will also be your guide. It will help you to know when to use your engagement skills. Work to use these OR skills predominantly in every encounter that the patient is not in action stage. Identify, respond, and elicit change talk. We want change talk to come from the patient as much as possible. And when the patient is ready, collaboratively plan with them using SMART goals. And then finally, keep practicing. If you would like to refine your motivational interviewing skills, I would encourage you to make a goal for yourself that matches your readiness to learn motivational interviewing and your confidence that you can start applying the skills.
Thank you for watching this motivational interviewing training. If you missed any of the preceding parts of this 4-part series, we encourage you to visit the training videos for a better understanding of motivational interviewing techniques and strategies that can facilitate change talk between you and your patients. Additional resources can be found online at QSource's digital warehouse, resources.exchange.